Here's up, guys. John here. The FDIC has just issued a warning to America that 63 banks are about to fail, and they have about $517 billion worth of losses. This is 4 times greater than the entire sum of the FDIC. Last year, the FDIC had a video they said was leaked. In this video, they said the inevitable will be bank bail-ins.
People understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But they're going to be.
I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank?
This wasn't a hypothetical, maybe this will happen. This is, the American people better get ready because this is going to happen. Well, what is a bail-in? A bail-in, essentially, is that banks are in such a bind, such a hard spot, they have no other alternative but to bail themselves out of that position with your money, with your deposits. And the more that you look into exactly what's unfolding right now, the more you'll see the next 6 months are going to change America forever. In this video, I'm going to break it down. They're walking us into the storm. There's no doubt that this happens. Please hit the like button, hit the like button. YouTube will share the content, educate more people about what's really going on in this country. And if you like to fix your credit, to position yourself, what I believe is going to be a massive credit crunch, and a lot of people in financial distress, a lot of opportunities inside of the entire economy if you're thinking about investing. We'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative item in your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free call for tomorrow. Take a look at this. So 1.2 million views on this single post. Unrealized losses, unavailable for sale, and held to maturity securities soared by $39 billion. To $517 billion in the first quarter. This is FDIC reported 63 banks on the brink of insolvent collapse. Then another post, same content, 587,000 views. I mean, this story is blowing up. Everybody is talking about this scenario. But what they're not talking about is how this is scheduled to happen. Because you think about this. They told these banks, lend money to the American people. We need to stimulate the economy. Issue 3% mortgage rates, lend on commercial real estate, on REITs, on office buildings, on these way overvalued valuations. And then what they did is they then increased interest rates from 3% or 2.5% to 7.5%, eroding the value of these assets that they lent on, to where now the banks owe so much money on these properties that they're underwater in a really, really, really big way. And so last year, when you had Silicon Valley Bank fail, when you had First Republic fail, PacWest getting acquired by Bank of California, Credit Suisse, you had all these disasters unfolding, they said, you know what, we need to come out with a bank term funding program. This is exactly what they did in 2008. And we need to issue help to all these banks. And these banks, they took these loans. 1,804 banks took a loan. $165 billion worth of these loans. But the thing is, these loans aren't a 30-year fixed rate loan. No. It's like a bridge loan that you would get on a construction project or a hard money loan. You have 12 months to pay it back. Well, on March 10th of 2025, every single bank has to pay back this money. That's if they took it the day that this expired, which expired March 11th of this year. Now, many of these banks, every single week, are going to have more and more of these banks that are going to make they're going to have to make their payments. And if not, they're going to go out of business. Now, one of the largest real estate investors in America, Barry Starlett, the CEO of Starwood Capital, he says that he believes we're going to have a bank failure every week. And he's saying it's going to be due to real estate loans. In large part, sure. But I think it's going to be due to a variety of changes that are unfolding inside of the U.S. economy. They're getting hit in real estate. Consumer deposits are getting pulled out. People can't afford to live. They're not saving as much. People are defaulting on credit cards. They're defaulting on auto loans. It's just a difficult day to be a bank. And when you have all of these other banks, Chase Bank and a lot of these other large institutions gearing up to really supersize this entire market, you're going to see that we're going to see many banks go out of business, and we're going to see large banks really start to dominate. Because did you know that JP Morgan Chase and these other large institutions, they legally can acquire banks out of distress. They can't do clean sales, buyer to seller, seller to buyer in a normal, healthy economy. But if it's a situation where consumers could be impacted, they legally and lawfully can go ahead and acquire these banks because they're not allowed to acquire more than 10% market share. And now, with all this distress coming, they legally will be allowed to. And so it's pretty crazy what's unfolding. all as the Fed just came out saying no rate cuts in 2024. So you think about this. They're not going to cut interest rates. They're going to put more weight and more pressure on consumers, on banks, on real estate loans. And you have about $2.8 trillion worth of commercial real estate loans due from now until 2027. See, it's just an absolute disaster type of situation they're walking us into. They said they're not going to cut rates because of inflation. Well, look, do you think inflation is at 3% or 4%? Many people would argue it's much, much, much higher than that. Increasing interest rates or decreasing interest rates, it's not going to do that much to combat inflation. What it would do, decreasing interest rates, is probably help a lot of these banks that are really, really, really struggling. But they're not going to do it. Instead, they're going to walk us into the great consolidation. That's what the U.S. economy is going into right now. That's what's happening right now in the middle class. The middle class is getting consolidated to where there's now essentially two classes of people. It's the have-nots down here and then the have-yachts up here. This is what's unfolding, and the same thing is going to be unfolding throughout banking. And look at this. Despite the claimed resilience in the banking sector by the U.S. Federal Reserve and the Biden administration, the specter of significant financial strain looms. Unrealized losses in securities swelled by $39 billion the previous quarter, driven predominantly by depreciations in residential mortgages for mortgage-backed securities due to rising mortgage rates. The latest FDIC report highlighted that this marks the 9th consecutive quarter of substantial unrealized losses, a troubling trend that will begin with the Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes in early 2022. Simultaneously, the number of banks now on the FDIC problem list went from 52 to 63 in just one quarter. These banks, identified with the Camel's composite rating of 4 or 5, indicate a heightened level of financial, operational, and managerial weakness. The total assets of these at-risk banks have surged by $15.8 billion, signaling potential vulnerabilities in the broader banking ecosystem. The widespread belief is that the banking crisis that began in 2023 is ongoing. Following the dramatic failures of these 3 large financial institutions in American history, Philadelphia Republic Bank also collapsed just a couple months ago. Additionally, a recent study by the Claros Group, published in May 2024, suggests that hundreds of U.S. banks are at risk of failure. Now, I would say that is conservative. If you have 1,804 banks that took out loans, and they essentially how these loans worked is, let's say they lent money on a real estate deal. This real estate deal at that time was $100 million, and they would lend $70 million on this deal, meaning the investor would put $30 million down. Then interest rates went from 2.5%, 3% to 7.5%. Now the $100 million deal might be worth $60 or $50 or $40 million. And now that bank is on the hook. They're underwater $30 million. But with this bank term funding program, they said, hey, look, we'll come out, we'll give you the entire loan amount, the entire $70 million. Forget about the 20 or 30 or 40 billion or 20, 30, 40 million dollars in unrealized losses on this single loan. Well, we'll deal with it later. But now these deals are eroding in value even further. So they're going to have to come out of pocket, and they're even in a worse position than they were when they initially took out this loan. I mean, look at some of these deals. It's crazy. Just in Starwood, this is the same exact company. This is the CEO. Just in Starwood acquires Washington, D.C. building from Brookfield in a foreclosure auction. The winning bid was just 30% of the debt owed. The building, 1200 K Street Northwest, trade hands for $44 million. Outstanding debt was $142 million. They lost $98 million on that deal, coupled with bank losses and the investor. And that's not including any capital improvements, any CapEx, anything that went into that deal. So you start to look at this situation. It is crazy. It is really, really shocking how fast this entire situation is ramping up. We have $128 billion worth of capital in the FDIC, and then they're sitting on $17 trillion in consumer deposits. It's 0.007%. 0.007% of all deposits. So the FDIC is not going to be this saving grace. They're going to save probably the top 1%, the top 0.001%. I don't think they're going to save Sally the hairdresser, Mike the plumber. I think we're going to see some pretty crazy situations unfold. And what I think is going to likely happen is we're going to start to see these banks trying to offload a lot of these assets, commercial real estate, multifamily, residential loans. We're going to see everything in distress, get rolled up and sold. What do you think about this entire situation? Do you think we're walking into this disaster that the Fed, they're telling us that we're walking into? They're saying that they are not going to cut interest rates. They are not going to cut these rates. I believe, without doubt, that consumers are in worse positions today than they've ever been in throughout our lifetimes. I mean, it's worse than any other time. 2007, you could buy a home in America for under $250,000. That was the national average. Now it's $450,000, $430,000. Used cars, essentially, you could buy a used car in 2007 before the great financial crisis for under $8,000. It was $7,900 for the national average for a used car. Now it's a multiple of that. Look at utility bills, rent, food, yet wages have remained the same. Consumers are in a worse position now than ever, and banks are way worse today than they were back in 2008. What do you think about this situation? Do you think we're going to see bank bail-ins? Do you think we're going to see a financial crisis in this country? I hope it doesn't happen. I love America. I would never want to see something like this happen. But the facts are saying that we're walking into a massive stage 5 storm. Let's have a conversation about this below. And if you'd like to fix your credit, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative item in your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free call for tomorrow. Catch you next video.